It began with a step, a single, careless, utterly human step. The morning sun pierced through the stained glass windows of the grand stairwell, painting the marble steps in fractured color, reds, golds, pale silvers. Courtiers whispered, trailing behind their monarch, dressed in crimson robes and silence. Then it happened. King Aldric III, sovereign of Granta, defender of the crescent crown, slipped. His heel found nothing but polished emptiness. His body lurched forward, a gasp, suppressed by instinct, shivered through the chamber. The king fell, not far, not hard, not heroically. He stumbled on the fifth step, caught himself on the railing, adjusted his crown, and stood again. But the silence that followed was not natural. It was the kind that grows when terror suffocates sound. He didn't speak, he didn't rage, he simply looked back, slowly, deliberately, and stared at the 37 people behind him. Then he said, "Lock the doors. Before we go further, stop for just a second and ask yourself, if a king falls and you're the only one watching, do you laugh or do you vanish? Hit subscribe if you want to see just how far this fall goes. And tell me in the comments, would you speak or stay silent? Would you save someone? Would you save yourself? Because in Grantor, silence wasn't protection. It was evidence. The first to die was the doorman. He hadn't moved. He hadn't even seen the fall. But his boots squeaked on the marble when he shifted his weight. Execute him, the king said. There were no trials in Granta, only decisions. Next was the floor polisher. Then a young court musician whose instrument was still strapped to his back. The king accused him of playing the wrong note 2 days earlier. A sign, he muttered, that disloyalty was brewing. Within the hour, 8 bodies lay in the courtyard. Blood pooled in delicate spirals where the marble dipped. By sunset, the toll had reached 17, and still no one spoke. The king returned to the same staircase the next morning. He stood on the exact step, looked down, and whispered, "I remember the sound." He summoned the cleaning maid responsible for the 5th step. She didn't come. She'd vanished during the night. In her place stood her sister, trembling. I only came to deliver her message." Aldric's eyes narrowed. "You speak, that's enough." By the 3rd day, there were no maids, no guards, just silence, and the king's echo. He began to conduct court alone, issuing decrees to the walls, nodding at statues, addressing portraits with absolute conviction. It would have been comical had it not been fatal. One decree outlawed swift turning of the neck. Another demanded that laughter be punishable by exile. On the 4th day, he ordered a culling of all marble staircases in the castle. They were to be replaced with modest, non-slick stone that does not conspire. The masons didn't show up, so the king ordered the marble burned. The captain of the guard tried to reason with him. Gently, cautiously, he said, "Your Majesty, perhaps the steps are not the threat." That was the last time anyone used the word perhaps within the palace. By day 5, the count stood at 31-7, more to go, 7 who still breathed within the walls of the Crescent Keep. A kitchen boy, an old scribe, 2 seamstresses, a gardener, 1 surviving guard, and a shadow. A man who hadn't been seen, but whose name was whispered on the lips of the terrified Merlin. They said he once advised the king, that he knew how to talk to him, that he'd survived worse. They said he'd try again, but no one knew where he was except the king. Because on the 6th night, Aldric stood once more at the staircase, alone, and spoke into the emptiness. "Merlin, come forth, or the boy dies next." The boy didn't speak. He hadn't spoken in hours. He sat in the corner of the grand hall, legs crossed, face pale, his hands clutching the hem of his tunic so tightly the fabric began to tear. No one had explained why he was still alive, only that the king had paused. Not stopped, paused. Outside, the halls echoed with a cold wind, whistling through archways where guards once stood. Portraits hung crooked. A red banner had fallen and lay tangled on the steps where the king had tripped just days ago. Merlin arrived without announcement. He did not knock, he did not bow. He simply stepped into the throne room like a man walking into a burning building, already knowing the exits were barred. He wore a grey cloak, plain, torn at the edge, dust still clinging to the hem. His beard was trimmed, but his eyes, those same dark, depthless eyes the king once trusted more than his own priests, were different now, not broken, not afraid, just finished. Aldric III stood at the far end of the chamber, crown slightly off-center, cape dragging behind him like something long since forgotten. He turned slowly when Merlin entered. a faint smile twitching at the corner of his mouth. You came. Merlin didn't answer. I said you would, the king continued, walking toward him. To the paintings, to the mirrors, even to the dog before I sent him off. I said, he'll come, Merlin will come. And look, he gestured wide. You have. The silence stretched. Then Merlin said softly, you killed 40 people. The king's expression twisted. I slipped, Merlin. Yes, and then you executed a harpist. She was humming mockingly. She was deaf. She looked mocking. A pause. Was it you? Aldric asked suddenly. Merlin frowned. Was what me? The wax on the stairs. The reason I slipped. Merlin stared. You think I waxed the marble? I think I trusted you. I think I trusted everyone, and I fell. You tripped on your own damn robe, Aldric. The words struck the air like a slap. The king's eyes flared, then dimmed. He turned, walked back toward the throne. You remember what you once told me, Merlin? That leadership is a kind of madness, that a king must believe in things no sane man would. Do you remember? No, I do. Aldric turned again, suddenly energized. You said no one follows a man who doubts, only the mad are followed. I also said, don't confuse fear with loyalty. And look where loyalty got me, he barked, flat on my back in front of my court like a drunk actor at a peasant fair. He paced now, manic. I ruled by command, I ruled by myth, I ruled by control, and in one breath I was mocked. You were embarrassed. I was betrayed. The word echoed. Even the boy in the corner flinched. Merlin stepped forward. They're gone now, Aldric. The court, the cooks, the pages, even the priests. The keep is hollow. There's nothing left to rule. There's you, the king said, a long pause. Merlin lowered his head. I didn't come back for you. I came for the boy. The king blinked. Merlin continued, calm but firm. You don't need to kill a child to feel like a king, and if you do, you're no king at all. The boy sat frozen, barely breathing. Aldric stared at Merlin for a long moment, then he smiled. It wasn't the fall, you know. Merlin didn't answer. It was the sound, that sharp sound, when my heel lost grip. The instant I felt that drop, I knew someone had conspired. They may not have met, may not have spoken, but they wanted it. They wanted me down, and the silence afterward confirmed it. You're mad? No. The king's voice lowered. I'm awake. He looked down at his own hands. I built this kingdom from iron and echo. I kept the wolves outside and the courtiers tamed. I made peace through terror and glory through fear. And when I stumbled, when I bled, they blinked, that's all, blinking, but it was enough. Then why not leave? Merlin asked. Why not walk away from the marble, from the throne, from all of it? Rule no one, kill no one. The king's gaze hardened. Because I am the last one left who remembers what this kingdom was. And if I walk away, they win the blinkers, the smirkers, the whisperers, the ones who laughed behind closed doors. No one is laughing, Merlin said. Then they're hiding it better. A moment then. Let the boy go. No. I'm not asking. Still no. Merlin stepped closer. You want someone to blame, Aldric? Blame me. I'll take the fall. Let the boy walk. He's not your echo. He's not your shame. The king stared at him, unmoving. Then slowly, deliberately, he raised his hand and pointed. Take him. Two ghost-like guards, faces hidden behind dark visors, emerged from the hall. Merlin stepped in front of the boy. You'll have to kill me first. Aldric didn't flinch. You think I won't? I think you will, and I think that's why you won't. The moment stretched. Then the king's hand dropped. Go! Merlin grabbed the boy's arm. The two moved, fast, silent, out of the hall. Behind them, the king stood alone. He didn't call them back, didn't order pursuit, he just stood. And slowly, for the first time in days, sat. He looked at the stairs and whispered, 40, 40, and still not enough. Outside the Crescent Keep, the capital of Granta, lay in a hush not heard in a century. Streets were half empty, shops shuttered early. Windows once lit with music and gossip now flickered like dying coals behind drawn curtains. Rumors traveled faster than messengers. The king had gone silent, which somehow was worse than when he screamed. Inside the palace, the throne room remained untouched. The king hadn't left it in 2 days. Food went untouched. The torchlight burned down to ash. Even the guards who remained, few as they were, moved as shadows, never looking him directly in the eye. Aldric sat on the cold stone floor, crown beside him barefoot, muttering into a silver chalice. 40, 40. Why not 41? No one answered. He didn't expect them to. He had dismissed the last two scribes after they failed to adequately record his thoughts. Too little reverence, he'd said. Their quills trembled. Cowardice bleeds into ink. The silence deepened. Then came the messenger, not young, not clean, not brave, but desperate. He knelt outside the chamber, knees scraping the stone. "Your Majesty," the king blinked. "Alive?" The messenger bowed lower. "Lord Remen of the North has sent word. He requests audience." Aldric's expression didn't change. Why? "He says he brings news of Merlin." The cup froze in the king's hand. "Bring him in." The doors creaked open. A pale man, wrapped in snow-worn furs, entered slowly. His boots left wet prints that steamed against the warm stone. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He simply said, "Your shadow walks." Aldric stood, and for the first time in days his voice returned to its full height. "Speak," the man nodded. Merlin and the boy reached the forest by dusk. The border town gave them shelter. The king's eyes narrowed. "They're in hiding." "No, they're talking, teaching. A crowd gathers. Not yet rebellion, but no longer fear either." Aldric turned, walked to the great window, looked out at a city too quiet. He spoke as if to himself. Merlin was always the softer voice, the cautious one, a scholar. But he forgets that soft words rot faster in open air. He turned back. What else? The man hesitated. "They speak of your fall, not as tragedy, as comedy." The silence that followed could have cracked bone. Then the king smiled. Slowly they laugh. He stepped forward inch by inch until his nose nearly touched the messenger's. They laugh. The man did not move. He did not need to. His message had done its work. The king turned again, voice rising. "Then let them hear a sound louder than laughter." He called for the captain, the last one who hadn't fled, a man named Velric, whose loyalty outlived logic. Velric entered, armor dulled, eyes bloodshot. "My king? Ride north, burn the village, hang the loudest first. Send word ahead. This is what happens when you laugh at falling kings." Velric did not move. The king's voice sharpened. "Do you question?" Velric said nothing, but his silence was not agreement. The king noticed. He stepped closer. "Do you think me mad?" Velric stared past him. "I think madness has structure, purpose. This is something else." Aldric blinked, then said softly, "Say it again." Velric looked him in the eyes. "This is not madness. This is a coward, drowning in his own crown." The chamber gasped. The air itself recoiled. The king did not. He reached for the nearby sword, ceremonial but sharp, and handed it, hilt first, to Velric. "Kill me then." Velric didn't flinch, didn't take it. "I would if I thought it would save us." A pause, but it won't. He turned, walked away, the door shut behind him, and the king was alone again, except for the whisper. It came not from any mouth, but from memory, a voice he'd heard once years ago as a boy, his father's voice. "You'll rule when you learn that thrones are made of lies people choose to believe." He looked down at the marble floor, still unburned, still gleaming. He knelt, touched it, felt nothing. Then, in one slow, deliberate movement, he lay flat against the stone, face to the floor, crown beside his head, eyes closed, as if waiting to fall again. But there was no one left to watch. The banners were pulled down, not by rebels, not by soldiers, but by the wind. It tore them one by one from the parapets, shredding the crimson fabric that once bore the crest of House Aldric, the crescent crown, the single eye, the blade beneath. Now only empty iron hooks remained. The crescent keep, once the most feared symbol of power in Grantor, stood like a wounded animal. Massive, hollow, breathing memory and dust. In the village of Millcross, north of the capital, firewood crackled beneath iron pots. Chickens wandered between boots. And in the center of it all, under a half-collapsed barn roof, stood Merlin. He didn't shout, he didn't preach, he asked questions. What is a throne without a witness? The villagers didn't know how to answer, so he did. A stool, nothing more. A man alone in a tall chair, shouting at shadows. Laughter, not cruel, cautious, like testing a door long locked, and then more. By nightfall, 24 people sat before him. By week's end, 50. The boy, Joran, they learned, walked freely now, still quiet, but not terrified. He drew pictures in the dirt, crooked crowns, long staircases, and men with heavy robes. The drawings spread faster than words. In taverns and alleyways, people whispered, "The king slipped and killed 40. No trial, no reason, because of a shoe. No, because of fear. In the capital, Aldric sat alone in the throne room, now lit by only 2 torches. He spoke to chairs, advisor to the east. What is the price of disobedience? He waited, answered himself. Obscurity, forgottenness. That is worse than death. He stood. To the court historian, record this. The silence of servants is betrayal with lace gloves. Write it, write it. But the scribe was gone. He approached the mirror instead. His reflection stared back, thinner, paler, eyes sunken. Am I mad? He whispered. The reflection said nothing. He nodded. Then let madness speak clearly. He turned to the hall, called the names of the last loyal guards. None came. So he summoned statues. He placed his crown atop a carved bust, draped cloaks over armor stands, lined the dais with helmets, each facing forward. A new court, unmoving, obedient. He began issuing decrees. Let there be no more laughter in public. Let no one walk without announcement. All shoes shall be inspected daily. When the ink ran out, he wrote in wine. When the wine soured, he wrote in ash. Outside, rot crept through the palace walls. Vines curled around broken stone. Rats ran across banquet tables. Rain soaked the tapestries. And still he ruled, until the messenger came back, the same one, gaunter now. He entered slowly, head low. Aldric did not rise from his makeshift throne of stacked books. You live? The messenger nodded. They speak openly now. The king tilted his head. They cheer him? They don't cheer anyone, your majesty, but they've stopped whispering. Aldric's voice cracked. And the boy? He smiles. The king froze. Describe it. The messenger hesitated. Then, like someone who forgot how to cry and now remembers how to laugh instead. The king stood. His hand trembled. Then it is time. He paced the hall, gesturing wildly. If they want spectacle, I will give it. One more act, a lesson they won't forget. I will call them home. Invite the traitors, the mockers, the exiles. And when they kneel, he paused, breathed. No more executions. The messenger looked up, startled. No, Aldric repeated. Not executions. That is expected. That is what they have come to fear. But fear fades. It dulls. He turned, eyes bright with something unhinged. This will be different. A new decree was carved, not written. The royal return, a celebration, a feast, a pardon. The king would host an open festival, inviting all former citizens to return. No guards, no interrogations, no punishment. Let them believe, he said, that I have softened. The messenger took the message, delivered it, and it worked. By the time the festival began, over 100 souls stood outside the gates. Musicians, bakers, old court ladies, drunk poets, even children. No one trusted it. But hunger can outshout caution. They entered slowly, eyes darting, and saw music, tables, banners, bread, firelight. No swords, just the king, standing on the steps of the great hall, arms wide. Grantor lives, he declared, and so do we. A cheer, weak but real, he smiled. Not because they returned, but because the trap had sprung. That night, he retired early, left the guests to drink, to toast. Then at midnight, he lit the furnace, the one below the keep, the one connected to the ventilation shafts. And the smoke filled the chambers, and heat crawled through the walls. He watched through hidden slits in the floor, not screaming, laughing alone. But he had miscalculated, because in the crowd was one child, Joran, hidden under a cloak, snuck in by a villager who believed in hope. And Joran saw. He saw the king light the match, and he ran through fire, through smoke, through collapsing beams. He did not stop. Not until he reached Merlin and said 5 words. He tried to burn them. Merlin did not reply. He stood, called to arms, and began walking toward the palace, not to fight, to finish the story. The road to the Crescent Keep had once been paved with stone, polished by parades and boot heels. Now weeds forced their way through the cracks, and the banners that once lined the path hung in strips like torn parchment. Merlin didn't ride, he walked behind him. No army, no rebellion, no flags, just people, bakers, butchers, seamstresses. The same ones who had watched their neighbors vanish, the ones who had buried 40 bodies without permission, the ones who had once whispered in cellars and now marched in silence. In the center of the crowd, Joren walked beside Merlin, no longer hiding. Ahead, the walls of the keep rose like a dying god, majestic, hollow, rotting behind its mask of stone. No guards stood at the gates. No arrows loomed from the towers, just open doors, welcoming, too welcoming. Inside, the great hall flickered with torchlight. The long tables from the feast remained half-burned, plates scattered, glasses toppled. A faint stench clung to the air, not death, not quite, ash. At the end of the room, the throne stood empty. The crowd hesitated. No one wanted to step first, so Joren did. He walked slowly, his small boots echoing like drums, then climbed the steps to the throne. He touched it. It was cold, no blood, no traps, just a chair. He turned back, looked to Merlin. Then from behind the pillars, a sound, footsteps, slow scraping. Aldric III emerged. No robe, no crown. He wore plain grey cloth. A smudge of soot across one cheek. His beard was longer, uneven. His eyes, once sharp with tyranny, were dull, sunken. He stopped halfway across the room, looked at the people, at the boy, at the throne, and said simply, "You returned." Merlin stepped forward. "You burned them." The king nodded once. "Some escaped, more than I thought. Others?" He shrugged. "It doesn't matter," Joren spoke. First time in front of all, his voice was soft but clear. "Why?" The king didn't answer immediately. He stared at the stone floor. Then, "Because if they left and laughed, it meant I was a joke." He looked up. "And I was not a joke." Merlin stepped closer. "No, you were worse. You were a man who mistook fear for reverence, and when the fear faded, you reached for fire." The king's lips twitched. "They cheered me once. They obeyed," Merlin said. "There's a difference." Aldric looked past him, at the people. "And now what? You kill me? You hang me in the square like a thief?" No one answered. He laughed, just once, a hollow sound. "You think letting me live makes you noble, merciful?" Still no answer. Then Joren spoke again. "You already died." A pause. Everyone felt it. A quiet shift in weight. A truth landing. The king opened his mouth, then closed it. He sat, not on the throne, on the steps below it, like a servant. He looked at Joren. "I never meant to kill the boy." "You did," Joren said. "And that was the last word. No trial, no punishment, no decree. The people turned, one by one they left. No torches, no drums, just the quiet shuffling of boots on stone, until only the king remained, and the empty throne, and the echo of 40 names. The throne room stands in eerie silence. Dust hangs in the air like suspended time. No jesters, no council, no guards. Only one name echoes in the echoless halls. Archivist. He is summoned. The old man enters hunched, draped in parchment-colored robes, eyes like forgotten scrolls. For years, he was a silent fixture of the court, unnoticed, unjudged, untouched. King Aldric, voice ragged, extends his hand. You've never laughed, never whispered, never flinched. You are incorruptible. You will be my new Lord Chancellor." The archivist says nothing. Instead, he pulls a single yellowed page from his robe, slowly, deliberately. He offers it to the king with bowed head. Aldrich unrolls the parchment. It reads, "You were the first to slip, but not the last. The kingdom followed because they watched you fall, and made it law to pretend you didn't." The king's breath catches. "No," he whispers. "No, no, no." But the archivist is already walking away, back into the shadow, back into silence. The torches flicker, a cold wind howls through the palace halls, and in every polished surface, Aldrich begins to see reflections, not just of himself, but of others, slipping, falling, rising, and being punished for it. He is not unique. He is a pattern, a grotesque tradition, and still he cannot stop. The palace is empty, not abandoned, Emptied mirrors line the grand staircase now, hundreds, thousands, a hall of glass. The king walks slowly through the maze of his own making, crown crooked, eyes hollow. Each reflection shows a different version of him, a weeping king, a laughing tyrant, a child in oversized robes, a corpse with a golden crown. At the top of the staircase, he stops. He turns to look back. But there is no one behind him. There hasn't been for years. A deep breath, a foot lifted, and then he slips. The sound is subtle this time. No gasp from the court, no stunned silence, no executioner's blade, just a man falling alone. He lands hard. The crown rolls into a corner, clinking against marble like a final bell. He groans, pushes himself up, looks around. Then he whispers, "Guards?" No reply. He turns to one of the mirrors and sees himself again. But this version is smiling. And then the reflection speaks. By order of the king, you are sentenced. Aldrich gasps. Who gave that order? The reflection grins wider. You did. He tries to run. But every wall is now a mirror. Every angle shows him issuing orders, raising axes, delivering verdicts. He is the court. He is the executioner. He is the condemned. He stumbles toward the stairs once more, dazed, desperate to escape the trap. But there it is again. The slip, the fall, again and again and again and again. Each time he rises, the mirrors reflect his fall back at him. He cannot leave. He cannot stop. The kingdom no longer needs to exist. The king is trapped in the performance of his own punishment, an eternal theatre with one actor and infinite stages.